Picture this scenario. You are lying awake at 3 in the morning, staring at the ceiling, and your mind is just racing through every possible financial disaster that could strike tomorrow. I mean, your car could break down, your laptop might die, or your pet might need emergency surgery. Every single grocery trip involves this stressful mental calculation between the name brand cereal and the generic version that basically tastes like cardboard. Every invitation to dinner feels like a direct threat to your weekly budget. Well, welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving right into that visceral midnight anxiety. Because for most people, this is a permanent fixture of life. They are completely trapped in a cycle of playing defense with their money, constantly calculating survival instead of actually building a future.
Now, we have all been taught to look at financial success as a series of big, intimidating numbers, right? We're talking $1 million or a high rise office. We think escaping that brutal paycheck to paycheck trap requires a massive fortune. But here is the crazy reality: the most transformative, life altering shift in your life actually doesn't happen at $1 million. So, what if the cure to your financial anxiety is something much more achievable? Today, we're going to see how the most fundamental change in your financial trajectory happens at a much lower threshold.
Section 1. The Paradigm Shift, Moving from Defense to Offense. To really understand how we stop playing financial defense, we have to look at the exact mathematical and biological point where you stop being a victim of your circumstances and start becoming the architect of your future. It's a true paradigm shift. And that point, it's reaching your first $10,000 in savings. This is the ultimate game changer. And look, this isn't just an arbitrary number made up by some financial advisors. There's actual proven psychology and mathematics behind this. Neuroscientists have literally found that reaching this $10,000 milestone physically lowers your cortisol, which is your body's primary stress hormone. Reaching this doesn't just change your bank account, it actually changes how your biology responds to daily challenges. It unlocks this massive amount of mental energy that you can finally redirect toward actually improving your situation.
Think about that dreaded check engine light popping up on your dashboard. For someone with zero savings, that light is literally a countdown timer to a financial catastrophe. It might mean racking up high-interest credit card debt or having to ask for a humiliating loan from family. But think about the other side of the coin. With $10,000 in the bank, that exact same check engine light is just a minor inconvenience. You're annoyed for sure, but you absolutely aren't panicked. This incredible shift from sheer panic to mild annoyance has ripple effects through your whole life. You sleep better, you're way more productive at work, and you start negotiating your life from a place of confidence rather than sheer desperation.
And this brilliantly illustrates what experts call the emergency fund effect. The real secret here? The true power of this money is not actually in spending it, it's simply in knowing it's there. This effect totally eliminates decision fatigue. When you have that financial cushion, you finally stop making those survival-based calculations 50 times a single day. You don't have to stress over whether you can afford to grab lunch with a coworker or if you need to buy the cheapest possible generic pasta. Having this breathing room means you finally get the mental bandwidth back to focus on increasing your income and making choices that actually build your future.
Section 2. The Monthly Payment Trap. The Illusion of the Leased Car. However, there's a catch. Once people get a little bit of breathing room and their income starts to grow, they very often fall right into the monthly payment trap. They confuse the feeling of wealth with actual, tangible equity. Let's introduce Jake and Marcus. They make the exact same salary and they both want the exact same $30,000 sedan. Now Jake signs a lease for $299 a month. He breathes in that new car smell, sees the full warranty, and absolutely feels like he's outsmarted the system. His pockets feel heavier today, and he's driving a brand new car. Marcus, on the other hand, takes out a 60-month loan for $522 a month. Marcus totally feels underwater for those first couple of years, pushing through the heavy frustration of a larger auto loan. But here is the absolutely critical difference between the two. Marcus has an actual finish line circled on his calendar. Jake has just stepped onto a permanent, never-ending conveyor belt.
You see, Jake's low monthly payment hides a whole lot of invisible math. Dealerships definitely do not actively advertise the hidden conditions attached to that loan number. For example, the average American drives over 13,000 miles a year, but leases usually cap out at 10 to 12,000. At 15 to 25 cents per penalty mile, Jake could face a massive surprise tax at the end. Plus, there are those highly subjective wear and tear charges for tiny door dings and, get this, disposition fees of $300 to $500 just for the privilege of returning the car. Jake is basically normalizing a permanent car payment that becomes this quiet background noise, slowly eating away at his wealth while he quite literally pays for the privilege of owning nothing.
The real aha moment happens when we run this math out over a decade. The difference in lifetime cost is just stark. Over 10 years, Jake leases 3 or 4 cars, spending roughly $50,000. At the end of year 10, he has absolutely zero assets to his name. Meanwhile, Marcus sends around $46,000 total, and that includes his loan and years of out-of-pocket maintenance, but he still has a paid-off asset worth around $5,000 sitting right there in his driveway. The difference over a lifetime of repeating this cycle isn't just a few grand. It snowballs into a massive 6-figure wealth gap. That smart leasing decision, it's actually a massive, invisible tax on your future freedom.
Section 3. The illusion of status. Real estate versus index funds.
This exact same trap of visible status versus invisible math applies directly to how we invest our money, too. So let's go back to Jake and Marcus. They each have $50,000 to invest. Jake takes his 50 grand and puts it down on a $250,000 rental property. He's constantly hearing about leverage and tax shelters, he's collecting rent checks, and best of all, he has a physical asset he can point to and brag about at neighborhood barbecues. Marcus quietly takes his exact same $50,000 and puts it right into total stock market index funds. Nobody notices. It's just boring automated numbers on a screen. Jake feels like an absolute genius on day one because his investment has social proof and highly visible status. But let's peek behind the curtain at the reality of that status.
Jake is raking in what looks like pure profit on paper, but he is completely ignoring the invisible math of being a landlord. The average rental property sits empty about 1 month out of the year. Then you have to factor in property taxes, insurance, and those dreaded capital expenditures. One single $7,000 HVAC replacement in the middle of August can literally ruin an entire year of profit. Jake feels rich, but what he's really done is just bought himself a terrible unpaid part-time job. He's managing tenant phone calls at 2 in the morning because a pipe burst. His cash flow is heavily diluted by these hidden costs, and the sheer hours of his own precious time he's forced to invest.
Meanwhile, what is Marcus doing? Absolutely nothing. He simply lets his index funds compound silently in the background. And this brings us to one of my absolute favorite ideas from our source material. It goes like this. Compounding is boring for the first 5 years, but it is astonishing for the next 15. Marcus proves that the absolute most powerful force in wealth building doesn't require handing over keys, fixing toilets, or bragging to your friends. It just requires patience and time.
Fast forward to year 20. Their net worth is shockingly similar. Jake's property equity is sitting somewhere between $400,000 and $500,000. Marcus's index fund balance is right there in the exact same ballpark, roughly $420,000 to $460,000. The financial destination is almost identical, but the journey couldn't be more different. Jake took on hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt and worked hundreds of stressful hours to get there. Marcus, on the other hand, enjoyed total liquidity, 0 tenant emergencies, and complete freedom.
Which leads us to this incredibly stark realization. Jake worked for his, but Marcus waited for his. Jake endured the stress, the risk of bad tenants, and completely concentrated his wealth in a single zip code. He took on a massive mental burden. Marcus simply waited. He diversified across thousands of companies and literally let time do all the heavy lifting for him. He let the market work while he just lived his life.
Section 4. True wealth is invisible. Escaping the trap. The single biggest mistake we make, whether it's leasing a shiny new car just to keep your monthly payment low or buying a rental property just so you can feel like a real estate mogul, is evaluating our financial decisions based on how they make us feel today rather than what they actually cost us over a lifetime. We are social creatures. We naturally crave status. But the reality of true wealth is that it's often entirely invisible. True wealth is not that shiny leased car in the driveway that you have to hand back in 3 years. It is not the stressful rental property you can point out to your friends. True wealth is the invisible security of compounding interest. It is having options, having time, and having liquidity. It's the ultimate peace of mind, fueled by that $10,000 emergency fund that allows you to weather absolutely any storm and sleep soundly at night without your mind racing.
So as you look at your own financial path and the daily choices you make, you really have to ask yourself a hard question. Are you making choices right now just to feel rich today? Essentially paying for the privilege of owning nothing but a fleeting sense of status? Or are you finally ready to master the invisible math that actually sets you free? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I challenge you to start looking past those visible numbers today.